because I just took this worship class as an elective. It doesn't really count yet. But
have you had Matt Boswell yet?
I've read some.
Doesn't he teach?
He does now. Yeah, I had Matthew Westerholm, which is a colleague of John Piper and Boswell and a lot of those guys, and kind of the new, this up and coming sort of Reformed Baptist worship, but not like old school fundamentalist Reform, sort of like Luther Reformed kind of deal. And it's just fascinating stuff because we come to church. I came to church from a young age, and you don't think about like what did worship look like in previous eras. You just worship the way you worship. You worship the way your parents worship, and you don't think about, well, where did these songs come from? And then you talk to old people, and they're like, yeah, we like to sing the old stuff, and then you realize, well, their old stuff isn't even that old.
Yeah.
How Great Thou Art wasn't translated into English until the 1950s, but that's the old stuff. Even the old stuff, Mighty Fortress is Our God, is only 500 years old. The church is,
So we're going back to the Gregorian chants. That's where you're taking us?
Well,
that's where we're headed.
Right, and even those were sort of a formalization of what had been going on. It was kind of all over the place with the early creedal chants and the in the first and second set. See, now I'm the one that's putting people to sleep. You were putting people to sleep with the Anabaptists, and
so we're to break out with those, and we're going to be singing
unquestionably
these Gregorian chants.
People be really confused. Be like, you guys said you wanted the old stuff, so here's the old
stuff.
Here
we go. We're going back 1,000 years.
And that's the thing; it just continues for a really long time. It's beautiful. Works better if you have like a big stone building.
Yeah. We can do that.
We can? You want us to build a building?
Yeah.
Announcing our brand new building campaign.
A big stone building. So we can do the Gregorian chant.
I could just see you making...
This bounces off the walls, You
make the pitch to the congregation. Now, I know we said we weren't going to do a building, but Kirkwood cornered me on the podcast.
We've got a $50 million stone structure that we're looking at here.
$50 million? Can you imagine?
No, I can't.
Well, ways to get ourselves fired.
Yeah.
Like, I know y'all are mad at me, but it's Kirkwood's fault. So, well, it seems like we're live, so we should probably talk about something. But I'm going to come back to this worship stuff because it's fascinating. And I always want to hear.
That's good. You should be fascinated by it. You lead it around here. I mean, this is the area that you're called in. So I'd be disturbed if you I can't stand reading that stuff. So it's good. I'm glad. I'm excited.
No,
I like somebody that's got passion about what they do.
Amen. Well, we see that same passion in your preaching. I think that's one of the things that just makes it
have some passion about it. If you don't, go find what you're passionate about.
Wow. Get out there and find your we could end the whole podcast right there. You just started us with that little nugget. But hey, you told me you wanted to talk about this new book you're reading. I'm really curious about it.
Yeah, it's called Under Jerusalem. And somewhere I read that it's limited. It's a limited edition. I don't understand. I didn't understand that. But it's a fascinating book. It goes back to the 1860s when the first excavations were being done in Jerusalem by this French guy, Salcy, who was really a problem and became a problem. I'm just getting into the book.
Okay.
I just came the other day, and I've had to set aside some other books that I'm reading because I just got so carried away with this. But it's really fascinating. So I'll have more to tell you about it in the days to come.
Okay.
There's a whole lot. When Robertson goes there, he follows Salcy. Salcy's French and Robertson is English, and when he comes in, it spurs all of these Russia, France, Italy, England, Germany, all of these countries to go and start
it's like an
excavation,
archaeological arms race.
Yeah,
they all want to.
Yeah, they did. And Robertson goes there, and he's looking at all this stuff, and he's, people are saying, okay, well, this doesn't match up with the Bible, and this doesn't match up with the Bible. And Robertson's talking to some of these Jews there, and they said, well, no, if you're talking about, the period of Christ, it's 2 layers down underneath all of this. You got to go down there. So they go under Jerusalem and start.
Get out of here.
Yeah, and that's when you go there, you see it, and it is just absolutely fascinating. It is a city built on top of the city, built on top of the city, built on top of the city, and that's the way they did. That's what they did throughout the Middle East.
And you ask, how does that happen? And it's probably just with the passage of time.
Yeah, they never cleared anything off. They took building material that was scattered, and they built back on top of that. And then that got scattered at some point in some war or an earthquake or whatever, and then they built back on top of that.
So the time of Christ there in Jerusalem, 2 layers deep. We'll have to hear more about that in the weeks to come. We won't be here next Monday, but maybe 2 weeks from now. We should make that a segment. Pastor's Book Corner. I know you read like 6 or 7 books a week, but maybe you could just a little bit, 6 or 7 a day. Wow, even I was underestimating your greatness.
No, I do not.
Pastor up to 36 books a week. So just continue to send him. He loves books on the end times. Send him all your stuff.
No.
I was reading some.
Well, I do like the end.
I know you do.
I don't read like that. I wish I could. My professor in my PhD, he was telling me, he said, you should be reading 3 books a week. I'm thinking, oh, my Lord, have mercy.
Think of the grandkids. You got to pay attention.
And this
to
is
them
the guy
at some
that
point.
wrote a book that's about that thick on the atonement, about 800,000 pages or so. Oh yeah, you ought to be reading 3 of these a week.
See, that's where I don't even know what you'd put in there. 1,000 pages. Good gracious.
It is probably the definitive work on the atonement.
So he covers all the different perspectives.
Oh my stars, stuff you never even thought about. Yeah.
Wow. That stuff. I mean, I love being able to read things like that and having your mind open. You're like, wow, I've never thought about this before, but somebody else has, and now you're telling me about it. I thought of you this morning, though, speaking of the end times, because I'm doing one of these D group Bible studies, and we're in Zechariah right now, which of course is heavily eschatological.
Yeah.
And we're in Zechariah 14, and it even mentions the battle of Megiddo or whatever.
Armageddon.
Oh yeah, right, Armageddon. And this is why I thought of you, because I'm looking at the commentaries. And I found by accident, I found me a real crackpot commentator who was talking about how, and you can see how the rotting flesh. I don't know if I remember his name right, but anyway, he says that the rotting flesh here is clearly a symbol of a nuclear bomb.
Oh my word! Oh my word! I thought you were serious. I thought, well, gosh, he's latched onto a good source here.
No. It was not a good source.
People can read. You can read anything you want, which is why through Esther I've done a little bit of that. I've been a little hesitant to do it, but I've just tried to say, look, you can just see these connections, these analogies. I'm not trying to be allegorical. But you can't help but see that there is some type of connection. But I don't go to the bazaar on that.
Well, no, it was
New Testament.
I'll tell you what happened, and this can be a warning to anybody else as you're studying doing commentary. I've got all kinds of great commentaries on my shelf in there. You've given me some, other people give me some, bought some for seminary. Well, I had them here at the office. So instead of remembering to bring one home from the office, I'm like, well, let me just do me a little Google search.
Yeah.
That was a bad idea. Because the stuff that's free out there, there's a reason it's free.
Yeah.
You get what you pay for. Yeah. You got to be careful. But I've really enjoyed what you did yesterday. You're speaking of Esther, because you really went back through the whole story, and we got to see how you were making some of these connections. I really liked that.
I wanted to recap, and I tell you who does that so well. There's several guys that do that really well. David Jeremiah does that extremely well.
Oh, okay.
Charles Ryrie, who was a good personal friend. I buried him.
Yeah.
I did his funeral. He traveled with us a good deal. Dr. Ryrie was a great synthesizer of Scripture. It always amazed me at how brilliant the man was, and yet how he could take such vast portions of Scripture, synthesize them, and show you a common theme that's running through all of this.
Yes.
So, and I thought, there are a lot of people here that were not here back in late August, 1st of September, They don't know what we're doing in Esther. Where's all this going? And then just for everybody to stop and think, let me just think back through the story. And of course, it ends up on a great celebration with a slaughter in the middle, you know.
Right.
So
let's celebrate.
Yeah, let's celebrate.
The witch is dead.
That's good. That's about right, you know.
Well, so that to me, that was a really fitting capper. Like, you know that this is the last message in the series. Let me go back through. And I liked how you started things off because you were like, well, just think of the players, you know, in the story, and how would you cast them if it was a movie? And this is one of I loved how you went both modern and old with the actors that you chose. That was fun. So I want to hear your Jimmy Stewart impression, because you said that Mordecai would have been Jimmy Stewart, one of my favorites.
I just love Jimmy Stewart. There's a great biography out on Jimmy Stewart. By the way.
Really?
It came out a couple of years ago. It's an excellent book. I grabbed it and couldn't put it down, and just love the guy. He just seems like he's bumbling his way through, but you can see the mind turning.
Yes.
He knows exactly what. It's almost like a Columbo type of.
Yes.
I almost said Peter Falk, and I thought, no, you know, he's too bumbling. But it's kind of that. Yeah, I kind of see Mordecai that way.
That's right. He ends up being smart.
He ends up being the guy that keeps saving every situation.
Yeah, and I just love. I think I talked about this a couple of months ago, but man, how funny it must have been for Mordecai, who had just like so openly disdained by the prejudiced Haman, so openly disdained, and then one day, you know, he opens his door and it's Haman or Haman's messengers, and Haman's like, nope, it's time for you to put on the king's robe and get on the horse. I mean, Mordecai must have just been doing this the whole time.
Yeah, really. You know what? I had not thought about that, because Mordecai could not stand Haman, and here he is showing up. This is what the king wants for you. And I would have thought Mordecai would have said, no, that's okay, thanks, but, you know, I'm not. But it was Haman that took him through the streets.
Yeah, I guess on the other hand, it's like by order of the king. Like, well, I guess I'd better do this. If the king tells me to ride this horse, I guess I better do that. This horse with a crown on it. Man, what a funny.
That is you know, people say, well, it's in the Bible. How do we know that's accurate? Well, we have reliefs in the area of Iraq from Susa that shows actual horses that the kings would ride that had crowns on them.
That's true. They were so over the top with the various regalia that they would put crowns on the horses as well. There was echoes of that in Zechariah 14 as well, because you might remember that passage where they put the bells, sort of the high priestly bells on the horses.
Right.
Saying,
that's a
Holy
great
is the
verse.
Lord.
Yeah. And everything in that day, from the bells on the horses to the cooking pot,
will be so holy.
Yeah.
Because the presence of the Lord is
now
there.
that just I love that. What an incredible thought.
It is great. You guys get out there and read Zechariah 14. Skip over the nuclear bomb parts, but otherwise it's really, really good. So I guess we should talk about Haman a little bit, because you cast Haman as Jaws, the great Bond villain, not Jaws the shark. Although I guess you might as well could have said Jaws the shark. Jaws.
I had
the
so
Bond
many
villain.
from Bond films to choose from, but that guy is just unforgettable. I started to get the one where he's biting. Did you see the one where he's biting the cable, the steel cable? You know, I thought that would have been a good shot to have used.
That's a whole separate.
But you know what? That sticks in people's minds.
Yes.
You know,
yes,
when
does.
when you mention the name Haman, they think of a Bond villain now, and they think, well, this guy was really bad.
Well, and he's almost like, he's so bad. You're almost like, is this even for real?
Yeah.
Like, he's almost satirically bad. You know?
Well, you know, he's got to be satanic.
Yes.
But the thing that comes back to me over and over is that he shows up out of nowhere.
Very interesting.
Haman is just there. And why is he promoted? Listen to how Haman is. After these events, King Ahasuerus promoted Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, and advanced him and established his authority over all the princes who were with him. Well, number one, where does this guy come from?
Right.
Number two, what in the world did he do? I mean, Mordecai saved the king's life. And it just cuts him off.
He's just there.
He's just kind of cut off.
Well, you kind of said it. You made a side note of it. Might have been partially just because he was so rich. Like Haman, like maybe the king is saying, well,
could
I'm
have
jockeying for political power and wealth. I need to fight the Greeks. So I'll just bring this guy in.
Yeah.
And then that's what Haman, he tries to buy the people, buy the Hebrew people, and then just so that he could kill them, which then that's another.
And then
yet
he
another
recovers
reversal.
his losses, plus makes a profit, plus gives the king all of this money on the side.
Wow. Yeah. Definitely.
Now, you just know this whole thing is hatched, like I said, in the mind of Satan and planned out in the bowels of hell.
Well, and I'll commend the message to everyone again, just because I don't think we need to do it right now, but you took us back through the history of why he's called the Agagite and where that comes from. But one thing that you focused on that I wanted to ask you about again was Haman's prejudice, because you say that this is the first time in Scripture that kind of prejudice was really mentioned.
No, it's the first time in Esther.
Oh, the first time in Esther. All right.
You read through the opening chapters of Esther, and you don't get a sense of any prejudice against any group. He's got 127 different countries that he has pulled together into this Persian Empire.
Xerxes has,
from northern Africa all the way through across India.
The 1040
and
window.
India was all divided up at that time. If
Right.
you remember, much later than this, what you're going to get is you're going to get Alexander the Great.
Yes.
And he's going to march all the way to the Indus River, and he's going to have all of these various Indian tribes that are different. So you've got all of these different countries, 127. You don't read in the opening couple of chapters about, that everybody in the kingdom, 126 countries, were against this one country because they were, because they had mohawks, or because they had, green hair or something. They dyed their hair green. You don't read that. But when you come to Haman, you see how in the life of a man who has sold himself to do wickedness, he is full of prejudice. He hates the Jews.
Well, and to me, the most fascinating thing there is how applicable it is to even our modern era. Because you took us through all the different, and obviously took us to the Maccabean Revolt and the birth of Hanukkah, but then of course the one that we all remember, the contemporary example, World War II. You have a modern Haman. You have Hitler, who's just trying to destroy all the Jews. But the blessed irony, the heavenly irony, is that anytime someone tries to do that to the Jewish people, God has an enormous victory and the Jews get a holiday out of it.
Yeah. It's amazing to me. Germany surrenders. Jodl surrenders, I think, to Montgomery. And he surrenders the German army on May 7th, 1945. 3 years and 1 week later, May 14th, 1948, the Jewish state is born. That's their Independence Day. That's their day that's their July the 4th.
Did that day have any significance before it being Jewish Independence Day?
Not that I know of.
Okay. I was just curious by the way that you said that, the 3 years and 1 week later, and if that was any kind of number with biblical significance. But then you said, I thought this was really interesting, you said that nobody's going to take that land from them, or if they try, that's when the end times are going to come.
I don't think they'll ever be driven out of the land. Now, they may lose a battle here or there.
Sure.
And, of course, Zechariah, they are pushed back up to the city of Jerusalem. After the Battle of Armageddon, they're pushed back up to the city of Jerusalem, but that's when Christ comes.
It says even Judah will come against them. Very interesting. Just everybody in the world comes against them.
Yeah.
And that's when Christ makes his glorious return. So you talked about there's even more, and I almost hesitate to talk about this, but I thought it was interesting and applicable. You talked about two modern examples of they're sort of the end, perhaps like the end of the logical conclusion of prejudice, evolution, and abortion. And I thought it was interesting that you went there. I wanted to hear more of your thought process.
Well, I just stop and think. When you come to evolution, basically what it says is you are a cosmic accident. There's nothing intentional about your life. Your life, you can't say life has purpose and meaning if you are an evolutionist.
Right.
Because you're just here by chance. You were some amino acid in a mud puddle that eventually just worked its way on up.
The primordial ooze is what you're referring to, yes.
So, And I think, for the most part, a great deal of evolution has been essentially disproved, and it just like the Big Bang Theory. That's
Right.
pretty much, scientists have pretty much moved off of it, especially in Europe. But we are so heavily financially invested in the major institutions in this country in evolution that you will not in any time soon see the demise of evolution.
That's true. It's become more of it's more than merely a science. It's moved beyond that.
It's a religion. is
Well,
what it is.
right, but you're right about that. But then it's also it's propped up
Yep.
financially,
Yep.
and it's almost too big to fail at this point, to use the banking
That's exactly
analogy.
right.
But you talked about how that theory, I guess that was the connection, like that theory is it will lead people to prejudice, because of course I can be prejudiced against you because you're worthless anyway.
Yeah.
Like I have no conviction of being prejudiced towards you because you're not worth anything. You don't bear
Well, that's
an image
exactly
of God.
what it teaches. That's what it puts in your heart, versus looking at a child and saying, you've been made in the image of God. God created. You're here. You have life. He's the author of life, the giver of life, the sustainer of life. And the difference that makes in a person's mindset, to know the truth about where did we come from. You're a special act of creation of God. That's who the human race is. So the same thing with abortion. You go back to what Mother Teresa was saying at the prayer breakfast that day when the president and his wife and his personnel were extremely uncomfortable with this little Albanian woman who sits in the streets of Calcutta and cares for every single dying person
Yes.
that she could, who says, send the babies to me. I'll take care of them. Give me the babies. Don't
Right.
abort them.
Right.
Because what you're doing is you're teaching an entire generation life is worth nothing. It's worth absolutely nothing. And you can't get beyond if you stop and think about what Reagan said. Reagan said everybody making decisions about abortion never had one. Were not the product
Right.
of one.
Right.
They got to live.
That's exactly right.
It just dehumanizes people. It instills in their heart a cheapness about life.
That's the sad thing. Yeah.
It is satanic.
There's no question about it. Yeah.
The whole abortion industry is satanic.
It is an industry.
It is.
Yeah.
It is child sacrifice in the womb. Is exactly what it is.
Scary words, but true.
So we've reared an entire generation now on evolution and abortion, and on you are your own truth. And the question is, look at the great world we live in. Look at how wonderful that has worked out for us. We're more polarized than we've ever been, that anybody could ever remember.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it's sobering, but I can understand why you took us there, because Haman is so over the top. Mm-hmm. It's so easy to look at his example and be like, "Whew, man, that is just ridiculous. Nothing like that would ever happen today."
oh yeah.
In abortion, that thing is happening today.
Yeah.
Like there's a genocide of sorts, but fortunately, Haman is defeated. I feel like we could maybe finish on a high note. I love what you were talking about in terms of Purim and the modern celebration, because Haman meets his end.
Yeah.
He is hanged in a very different sense of the word, and then now the Jewish people gather and they stomp on his name and blot him out.
I've been in Israel a number of times when they were celebrating Purim. We'd get in town and with friends there, they'd say, "Oh, it's Purim, is tomorrow or today or whatever." And you just go around and you see all the little kids that are dressed up, and it's like Halloween, but it's not like they're not gory. You don't see
Right.
Draculas or witches or things, but you do see little girls dressed up like princesses, and boys in turbans and robes and stuff, things like that, and adults too. But they do that. They go. The funny thing is they go to synagogue on the night before. They read the book of Esther,
Yes.
and I mean they make noise and they hiss and they boo and they stomp their feet, and they come back and they do it's. Can you go to church and have fun sometimes? Well, yeah.
I certainly hope you
Yeah.
can. Well, that's a good segue because I want us to briefly touch on what's happening this coming week.
Good.
So we're not going to do this recap next week. So maybe we can just chat about this for a couple minutes before we close up shop. Now this is a big deal. We're having the Advent music service next week, and I don't say it's a big deal just because of the music. The music is going to be great, but it's a big deal because you're choosing to not be in the pulpit. You're sort of yielding that to the music, and I kind of wanted to hear some of your philosophy there because I know you're radically committed to the ministry of the word and you believe in the pulpit ministry. So,
Well,
and
that's
yet
what
you're
you told me to do.
So I just told you. Told you to not be in the pulpit.
No, music is a great tool of God. Just you stop and think about. We talk about bird singing, but they really don't sing. Man is uniquely gifted by God to sing.
That's true. Yeah.
And so much good music out there that really speaks to the heart. So I'm glad. I'm looking forward to it, to a day of just where we come in and we just worship the Lord through song. We don't do that every other Sunday,
Yeah. You
so
can't do it
it's
every
a
week.
good, I think we do it around Easter and we
yeah,
do it at Christmas.
we do a little bit extra music at Easter, but yeah, I guess
I love the song Noel yesterday, the Noel song with the
Oh
bells.
yeah,
the chimes in
wasn't
it.
that fun?
Oh yeah, it's beautiful.
The first Noel, and that last verse, man, that really got me yesterday. The babe who hath made heaven and earth of naught, and with his blood mankind is bought. Ooh, yeah, that gives me chills thinking about him. But
I'm looking forward to it.
but you will be a big part of the service because I'm going to have you. Yeah, right. This is me telling you right now. You just got voluntold. I'm going to put you in because I'm going to have you do the introduction, and then at the end I definitely want you to give an invitation. And
Well, if I don't get to sing the solo, I'm hurt and I'm leaving.
Okay.
I'm going somewhere.
all
else.
right, well, if you have any
any
solo requests for Pastor Mac, you can let him know. He actually has an excellent voice. Although I don't think
yeah.
I would. I'm trying to give you the week off. I don't need you to
I
be
appreciate
nervous
it.
about
I've got
that.
to be out of town for a day or two, and
Oh, okay. You're
I
heading out.
appreciate it. Yeah, and it gives me a chance to work on some stuff because I'm speaking for Rick Burgess at a church here in a couple of
Oh,
weeks.
that'll be fun.
You know,
Yeah, those
Marie,
events
and I
are
need
great.
to go and do this message for men.
That'll be good. Well, we'll talk more about. So we'll be back here in 2 weeks' time, and we'll tell you even more about the Christmas season. And I know Pastor's thinking about his
We've
sermon
got a
series
lot
in January.
going on. It's such a wonderful time of year.
Oh man.
To just slow down, if you can. Deb said that the other day. She said, gosh, we got so much going on.
know.
When are we going to be able to just slow down and enjoy the days that we have? And that's important.
Yeah, it is.
Cut out all the stuff that is superfluous and,
Yes.
just fit in what's really of value. And this is, what we're doing. We think we have some real worshipful times together as a congregation. I read a good friend of mine who's an evangelist. I read his tweet today. He said, going to church online through Zoom is like kissing a picture of your wife. It's just not the same. And I thought, well, that's pretty good. That's really good.
That is, wow, that's very interesting. I've never tried kissing a picture of my wife. I guess I should see if that
It just
if that
is not
lines
the
up.
same.
Yeah, well, fortunately, she's usually around. So sometimes she doesn't want me to kiss her. She'd be like, "Oh, you're too sweaty, or your breath smells bad, or this or that," and I have to go deal with
You
those
get
things.
the raw Kirkwood
Yes.
here on Monday
This
mornings.
is the real deal. This is the real deal. No, I get, yeah. Well, hey, we love you guys. It's been fun talking, and thanks for sticking with us. And thank you, Pastor Mac,
Good.
for talking with
Thank
me.
you.
I
Sure.
enjoy our chats.
Yes, I do too.
All right, see you in a couple weeks.
All right. Here comes the kick. For as long as he can do it.
I know, right? Until the one day when my back.
Well, one day when we put him in traction.